From its early years, No Man's Sky has done a reverse Elon Musk and gone from zero to hero. What started as a disastrous launch turned into a euphoric and triumphant example of how game companies can turn it around. So in today's No Man's Sky review, Reggie and the boys are going to look at how far this game has come and score it based on what we know today. I'll be asking a controversial question, which is, can No Man's Sky claim to be the best space sim right now? Well, buckle into your spacesuits and let's have a chat. Well, let's answer that question of whether or not No Man's Sky is the best space sim money can buy right now. Don't be so bloody stupid, Reggie. Of course it bloody isn't, because No Man's Sky is not a space simulator, but instead a space adventure game. Even still, my pedigree chums, there is much that can be learnt here that games like Elite Dangerous and Star Citizen would do well to take note of, because No Man's Sky delivers in nearly every space genre department. So No Man's Sky has you waking up on a roddy random planet with a broken spaceship, and your immediate goal is to go get a load of materials to fix the ramshackle piece of junk. Now, effectively, this is a tutorial section, and what becomes apparent is that there are some quite intricate systems at play. You'll need to mine all sorts of materials, manipulate terrain to such a degree that you discover that everything can be broken down Minecraft style, including the ground floor. You'll have different types of fauna to contend with, or different alien life forms, and before long you discover there's even a survival mechanic as well. Now, thankfully, this isn't the annoying bullshit kind of survival where you have to eat a packet of crisps and an apple just to keep your bloody health up or ensure that you get enough sleep to recover energy. Instead, it's more simplistic than that, such as ensuring you got enough oxygen and keeping the extreme elements off from you. If you land on a radioactive planet, then that Putin shit is going to start hurting you, and you better find shelter in a settlement or indeed your own ship. Or maybe a storm passes over and causes the temperature to plummet. And with the sheer volume of items that you can mine from each planet, and indeed space in general, No Man's Sky does something that I feel Elite Dangerous has not really managed to do, and that is make the planets feel alive. Even when there is nothing roaming about them, they feel immersive, because planets here, they feel like they belong, with high levels of vibrancy in everything around you, versus just being a screenshot for space nerds to wank off to. What also becomes apparent is how there are other little wonderful things to do on planets, such as discovering ancient relics to help learn alien languages, or finding crash pods to help farm those extra resources. And this is all done through a rather nifty little tool that can mine, shoot, break down rocks, or scan the area to learn its detail. But when you take off from a planet for the first time, it hits you just how large this universe is. To be exact, 18 quintillion planets, which supposedly would take a player 585 billion years to see them all. A nerd told me that, by the way, so it's gotta be true, innit? There are space stations to visit too, where other NPC ships land and where you can offer cash to buy their ship or trade resources. Likewise, there's a space station where you get to meet other real-life players. Yes, people, this is a proper online game now, and you can go about the gaff with your mates if you so please. And there is mining in space too to help collect materials, or space battles to help fend off attacks. And one of the more recent updates is the freighter, where you can send your own fleet on expeditions to help mine materials and claim resources. However, this is where the line of space adventure game and space simulator become very clear. You see that mining I mentioned? Well, the multi-tool basically looks like your wife's vibrator that pings out a laser beam by simply holding down the mouse button, and out pops some minerals. Elite Dangerous has far more intricacy here. You see that freighter that you own that you can just gawk at and land inside? Well, just head full speed into the capture point and have your ship suck you in magically as if Kim Kardashian herself is at the controls. Star Citizen it ain't, with its sophisticated flight models and that space battle that erupts randomly. Well, fear not, my Padawans. Even in the lowest tier of shit ships, just hit the brakes, spam the enemies with lasers and rockets, and you'll be golden. There are no fire groups, thrust maneuvers, shields or power management options to contend with here. And all this is okay, people, because No Man's Sky doesn't want to be a simulator. It has its own clear vision of what it wants to be. It has its own version of how it instills its gameplay mechanics. Just know that when you buy this game, it's not a space simulator in any sense of the word, but instead a wonderful space exploration game that deserves its high praise. Not all sits well with Reggie though. There are some issues across the board here, but for me, the biggest and most fundamental one is the fucking god-awful UI. You have your spacesuit, which contains a section for technology and cargo, then the same for your ship, your freighter, and also one for your multi-tool. So you might be looking at 8 sections here to juggle inventory around, like you belong in a No Man's Sky Cirque du Soleil. But it gets convoluted because if you need to create a material like starship fuel to power your ship, you might need 2 other components, and from those 2 components you might need to refine and craft some more components. The issue then is finding space, and come 30 hours into the game you finally grasp how it all works by acquiring the talents of Rain Man.
It's gonna hit on 20? Yeah, 20, definitely 20.
I wish there was a cleaner interface here or an option to craft the overall item automatically if you have all components in your stocks to make it. You therefore find you spend a lot of time in your UI crafting bullshit, especially in the early part of the game, which makes things feel stunted and slow. Secondly, is that No Man's Sky feels immediately grindy, and whilst I'd argue it's not elite dangerous levels of grindy, the pacing definitely feels off. The story, it's so-so, and as you come across alien species, you'll have to ask those you meet to learn a bloody word. You'll be doing this to hundreds of different life forms, like the Rosetta Stone that you are. You'll be mining non-stop in those early hours, and for many players, it might kill the game before it truly began. Now, no word of a lie, people, it took Reggie around 5 restarts of No Man's Sky across a few years to break through the wall of sheer monotony, but blimey, when I did, it was a revelation. Once you do, the game opens up, there is far less reliance on materials as they can be bought at the bloody stations, and the UI system becomes second nature, even if it means it took 10 years off your bloody life. And my final point here is a personal preference, but it comes down to the ships themselves. I'll be honest, they don't excite me. Not once have I looked at my ship, or any other ship for that matter, and experienced premature ejaculation. In Elite and Star Citizen, I can safely say that about all their ships, but not in No Man's Sky. I feel like a child's made them using Lego, and the artists took those designs as their inspiration. That's totally subjective, of course, but for me, the ships, they should have you gushing with delight. Now, when it comes to graphics, what I really want to call out here is the art style. Is it cartoony? No, I wouldn't say that as such other than the ship designs, but instead it's vibrant and colourful, and it's retained a slightly more simplistic approach due to the scale and richness on offer here. Because of that, is it less beautiful than, say, Elite or Star Citizen? Absolutely bloody not. In fact, it's eye-popping and in many respects has better vistas than those other 2 games with the tapestry of life on offer. I would say it doesn't have the grandiose scale and sheer wowness of, say, Elite or Star Citizen when you see their planes and horizons, and I think much of that really is coming down to the scaling here. Landing on a planet feels great as the ship goes through the atmosphere and burns its way through, and you see the planet before you load up. A few bits of popping and stutter to note, of course, but it's all rather magnificent nonetheless. The issue is when leaving the planet, it feels like Reggie banging one out in his college days. It's incredibly quick, it's lackluster, and feels anticlimactic. You leave the atmosphere in a fraction of the time it took you to enter it, and it loses some of that wellness for me that each planet initially promised. Again though, it's part and parcel of No Man's Sky not trying to be a simulator. As for textures, they're very well done, and in recent updates the addition of particular environmental effects really adds a lot to the universe. You find yourself in little bits of glare on your cockpit screen create that dome effect, clouds and volumetric space fog adds a moody feel to environments, and surfaces are all shiny where they need to be, such as copper deposits. No Man's Sky is now at a place where it's as beautiful as any other space game out there, and that comes down to the sheer richness of what is on offer. As a side note, Reggie has also played this on his Steam Deck, and it worked bloody well. Not on the highest settings of course, but pumping out 40 frames a second really made this a great space game on the go. Sound is also wonderfully done with a mellow musical score that is clearly inspired by space movies. You have these moments of quietness punctuated by a stirring and melancholic instrumental, and sound effects are spot on with wildlife and alien forms going about their business as you hear the hum of spacecraft flying over and your mining tool is crackling away at precious metal. Everything here is joined in such a way that you could close your eyes and ironically imagine it belonging to a space sim. I do think it's missing some proper girth and meat in places. For example, I feel your own ship sounds a bit whooshy and limp versus being this mechanical behemoth that travels distant galaxies. apologies, but all in all, people, it's a bloody good show. No Man's Sky then did what many thought would be impossible. It took a big steaming pile of shit, and Hello Games actually polished it, and not just polished it to hide over cracks either. They did so by crafting a beautifully realised space adventure game with a massive amount of content. Elite Dangerous and Star Citizen cater to a different audience, of course, but No Man's Sky is most definitely a stepping stone to those who wish to venture on a more serious and deeply intricate space sim. And strangely, you find that once you do hop over, you can't help but feel you're missing something that you enjoyed so much in No Man's Sky. And for Reggie, that missing something is atmosphere. No Man's Sky delivers atmosphere because it's charming, it's epic, it's a full and rich universe, and above all else, it just works. Yes, it's slow and the pacing is off and the UI is still a shit hitting a fan, but when you strip back No Man's Sky to its very core, what you're actually left with is unlimited in scope. And isn't that what makes the space genre such a wonderful and inspiring place to be? Until next time, my lovelies, Reggie out.